Hello music lovers, welcome to episode 74 of What Makes This Song Special. As always, if you've not tuned in before, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you a story that I am transported back to when I hear a particular song. This week's particular song is Piano Man by Billy Joel, an absolutely amazing track. And when I hear it, I go back to this part of my life, this time in my life. At the end of the video, I will talk a wee bit about Billy Joel, a little bit about the song Piano Man, and I'll also leave you a link to my cover version of Piano Man, which I'll do after this video. So the story, for me, what makes Piano Man by Billy Joel a special song, apart from the obvious that it's just an amazingly well written, incredible ballad, for me it takes me back to round about late 2001. I'd landed a nice little weekly gig playing in a piano bar restaurant inside a country club in the south side of Glasgow. I was not ready for that job when I took it on. I was about 17 years old, 18 years old, and I'd been playing piano, teaching myself to play piano for a couple of years, really as a vehicle to write songs and accompany my vocals, so I could sing the songs required for a piano bar set, no bother, but playing the piano parts it was just quite basic. All I was doing was playing basic chords and singing and hoping that people just tuned into the vocals and were so wowed by the vocals that they didn't notice that I was not a great piano player. But I'd managed to get this job. It was a pretty well paid job compared to my my other job at the time of sort of helping out in the kitchen as a sort of pot monkey, dishwasher / helper chef de commis, chef de party. This was a great wee extra way of making money in the evenings, and it was musical and I learned from it and all that stuff. And at that time I was on a mission to become either the front man of a famous band or a successful singer-songwriter, and I'd recently been signed to a small Glasgow record label called TRL Records, and things were on the up. I was writing lots, I was hoovering up music all day, every day. My influences at that exact time were probably Queen, Elton John, Simon and Garfunkel, Sting, and a new band that had just kind of come onto the scene called Coldplay that I was really enjoying, their first album, Parachutes, amongst lots of others. But I was just devouring albums for breakfast, lunch and dinner back then, and desperate for inspiration for my own songwriting journey. And the excitement I would receive from listening to a new album was just completely unparalleled at that moment. Especially if it was something from the 70s. I could just listen to songs from that era and feel nostalgia for an era that I wasn't even alive to appreciate. I know it doesn't make sense at all, but it makes sense to me. I don't know, how can you feel nostalgia for something you didn't experience? But I did. Anyway, there were a few regulars that would come into the bar on a Friday night or a Saturday night, and I got to know them all, and I got to know what they liked and what kind of music they would have wanted to request. It was a good opportunity for me to listen to people's requests and then learn them for the following week. And there was a guy that used to landscape the gardens around the country club along with his girlfriend, and I knew them to say hello to, smile to as they walked past. And I'd been told the guy was this amazing, phenomenal drummer who'd played with lots of sort of big Scottish and Glasgow bands, who had kind of almost made it but just never got the lucky break to be a household name. And the couple were called Rick and Lon. They were quite a few years older than me, and I hadn't really spoken to them before properly. But one night Rick came up to me as I was playing the piano, and in between songs he just walked up and he said, "Can you play You Take My Breath Away by Queen?" Now, You Take My Breath Away is an absolutely amazing Queen song. It's a diamond of a Queen song, but not one of the big hits or the most well-known Queen song, unless you're a real geek like me, a real Queen geek, a real super fan. He was either joking or just testing me, or maybe a bit of both. But luckily for me, I did know it. I knew it off by heart. It's one of the few piano parts that I actually knew the way, the actual part, as opposed to just playing a simplified version of it on chords. And I started playing the piano intro, and this big smile broke out on Rick's face, and he got all animated, and he shouted across the bar, "No way, this guy's the real deal!" And I took real pride in it at the time, since, as I said, he was considered to be a bit of a Glasgow music scene legend. So as the weeks rolled on, Rick and Lauren would come in at the end of their long day of landscape gardening, and they would order a couple of drinks, and then they would ask me to play Queen songs, usually at the piano, and we'd chat in between songs. And it was a dream come true for me, because it was the type of music that I wanted to play all night anyway, but couldn't justify just playing Queen songs without a customer having requested it. And they came to my rescue. And as we got to know each other a bit better, I started playing some of my own songs for them one night. And at the end, Rick came over to the piano, and in quite a kind of man on a mission, matter of fact manner, he just stated that he was going to come out of retirement to play in my album, which I just couldn't believe at the time, because I'd been looking for a drummer for ages to record on the album, and the record company at the time were looking at different kind of session players and stuff like that, but hadn't found the right person. And I would never have asked Rick, because one, I'd heard that he'd kind of retired from the music industry. He was fed up with it and just he walked away from it all. And two, he just seemed sort of like so ahead of me musically, me and my bandmates, who were just kind of fresh out of school. We thought we were pretty good for our age, but these guys were, guys like Rick were 10, 15 years older, and just, they'd been there, done it, the experience they had, the skills, the chops, it was just ahead of us. And so I never even thought to ask him really until he came up, and of course he offered, and I was so flattered and excited, because in that moment I had the complete lineup to record my first album. And not just any lineup, like an incredible bunch of musicians who were in the exact same mindset as I was with regards to how we wanted it to sound. I had Chris Mack on bass, Michael Oakley on keys, and he was helping produce as well at the time. I had Davy Monroe, the blues man I've mentioned before on the channel, on guitar. Myself, we now had Rick on the drums, and we had other musical friends that would fill in bits and pieces of harmonies. My brothers would come in and do harmonies and bits and pieces of stuff, and it was just had this excellent core of great musicians that I knew would be able to play all of the songs on my first album. So dead excited. And so I had that was all happening. That was great. And then meanwhile, I'm playing as many of these piano shifts as I can to make money to buy CDs and clothes. Two very important things if you want to be a rock star. You need CDs to inspire you. You need clothes to look cool. So, and there was another guy that used to come into the bar called Tommy, and he would request songs as well. And every night he would always ask me to play Piano Man by Billy Joel. And I had never heard of it. I don't know how, my 18 years on planet Earth, I'd managed to avoid hearing Piano Man by Billy Joel, but I just didn't know the song, and he kept saying it every week. "It's your song, son. This song's basically about you." And I was always intrigued, but for some strange reason, when I finished my piano shift, or when I was in town in Glasgow buying CDs the following week, I would just forget that he'd asked me to learn this song. And it was before the days of jumping onto YouTube or Apple Music or Spotify and just listening to a song. You had to go out and physically work out what album that song was from, and then buy the album. And so a lot more difficult back then. So the song was mentioned numerous times, and it kept evading me. And then just before Christmas that year, Rick, the drum god, came in and said that the country club had been looking for a covers band to play numerous nights for Christmas functions, and he said he would put together a group for it. So he asked me to be the singer and play some keys on some of the songs, and he said that he had some other legendary guys that would fill in the bass guitar and electric guitar spaces. The pay would be great, and it was a great opportunity for me to play with some amazing experienced musicians who, as I said, were like 10 plus years older than me. So a few days later, we're on our way to this empty warehouse in Rick's van for our first ever rehearsal, first and only rehearsal, I think, for about 40 songs that we rehearsed in one rehearsal before playing those gigs that Christmas. And we're in the van, and on comes this song on the radio, and I remember hearing the harmonica the mouth organ part at the introduction, and Rick says, "Oh, this is the song," and it was, "This is your song. This is your song." And I was like, "What do you mean this is my song?" And he was like, "This is the one that Tommy keeps asking you for at Parklands." And yeah, just I tuned into the lyrics. They just sounded like something I would have written. Not that I could write as well as that, but I just mean it just sounded like something that I had written about my life, my story, playing in that piano bar. It was so perfectly written. A song about the wannabe poets, the writers, the actors, the folk who would tell me I was too good to be playing in the piano bar, that I should be famous, and I remember being just captivated by the lyrics and the songs. There were so many parallels. It was just amazing, blown away. And then maybe 10 minutes later, we're taking all of the equipment out of the van, and I met Rick's musician pals for our one and only rehearsal. And the bass player was called the Biscuit, because he was apparently plain and reliable, like a rich tea biscuit. That was why I got the nickname. And Andy, who was from Arran, the Isle of Arran, great guys, incredible musicians, and I felt completely out of my depth, but they were full of compliments and enthusiasm for me as well, and they made me feel like I was worthy of playing in a band with those guys. So we called the outfit Innuendo, due to our mutual love of all things Queen. We were all big Queen fans. So and after that one rehearsal, the following weekend, Innuendo were playing to a couple of hundred drunk Christmas party animals, and we made them dance all night, and it was an amazing experience, and it carried on for every weekend of Christmas. I think it was like 3 nights every week, or every weekend throughout December, and it was great. As I said, it was Christmas money. It was a great experience and amazing. And when January came, the parties dried up and the room was empty again, and apart from the usual locals at the bar, and I was back at the baby grand piano in the corner, and I had a new song to sing, except I would change the names in the song to the guys who were always at the bar in the club and in the bar. So, and they would laugh when I used their names instead of the names in the song Piano Man. And that song made me believe that I could be the next Billy Joel. You know, I wanted to be like the next Elton John, Billy Joel, this like singer-songwriter, piano man. And as much as I was more into Elton John at that time, and some other artists, to be fair, I was never a huge Billy Joel fan at that point. That was the song that started to turn me on a wee bit more to some of the Billy Joel songs, and a couple of years after that, I just became completely obsessed with Billy Joel as well, and bought all of his albums, and amazing. Just, I mean, the guys, I don't think I need to sit here and tell anybody watching how amazing Billy Joel is. The guy is just an absolute genius. But that was the first track that kind of really made me realise, wow, this guy's, he is the real deal. And I had so much to draw from when it came to arranging my own album. All of those songs that I learned from the piano bar and for the function band with Rick and the boys, it just taught me so much about the structure and the arrangement of a great pop song. Just a magical time. Always takes me back to my first year or so of playing in the piano bars, and or in that piano bar for real. So amazing, really good time. So there you go. That's just a wee short story this week. But that's why Billy Joel Piano Man is special to me. I'm sure it'll be special to so many people watching, for so many different reasons. It maybe reminds you of an amazing summer you had travelling. It maybe reminds you of meeting your first ever boyfriend or girlfriend, or it's the song that you danced first time with your wife or your husband. I don't know, just all those things, or it reminds you of your kid being born, or but that's what music does, isn't it? It takes us back to those amazing, it becomes the soundtrack to our lives, and it takes us back to those amazing moments in life, just yeah, really cool. I'll talk a wee bit about the song. Piano Man was released in November 1973. As I said before, it's sung from the persona of a piano bar pianist, describing the customers and the staff and the goings on around him. And in true Billy Joel style, his lyrics bring a whole world to life in your imagination, in the way that he accurately describes the demographics of people and times. You can just picture the whole scene. Even, I think, easy for me because I played piano and piano bars, but I think for anybody who didn't play piano and piano bars, they still get that whole, the imagery of what he sort of puts on paper lyrically with that song. It's just amazing. It's a masterpiece. And it became, to this day, one of the biggest, or one of his biggest and most well-known hits. I would normally talk about Billy Joel's voice, because I always talk about the singer's voice and do a wee kind of vocal coach technical analysis of the voice, but I've done that before on a previous episode when I did, what did I do? Vienna. I did Vienna. What a song! So I did Vienna by Billy Joel on a previous episode. If you want to hear a bit about what I thought of Billy's voice, it's on there. But I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. As I said, it's a very short one today. But yeah, just a wee story about my time being the piano man in bars and restaurants, and my first taste at playing in a covers band. Two things that I'm kind of still doing today, albeit not quite in piano bars, but I'm still playing piano and singing to people every weekend, numerous times at weddings and functions and things like that, and still playing in my band. So yeah, that was kind of how it all started, I suppose, and I've never really even thought about that until just now as I'm saying it. So yeah, kind of started there and then I stopped for a few years and then went back to it. So yeah, so click here for my version of Billy Joel Piano Man. Tune in next week for another story and another song, and yeah, thank you so much.